this time around, we want to learn how to access the morphs that are contained in a selected object, since now we know how to select an object. All right, so what we do here, first of all, let me change this back to having these brackets here, because we're going to have probably more than one line, I don't know, maybe. And so what we do, we need to create a function that is going to do just that. But before we do that, we need to see something here. So let me go to the graph editor, and then if I go to my object, I'm going to see that the channels that are here are position, rotation, and scale. And that's it. So I don't see any morphs here. Now morphs, since morphs are part of their envelopes as well, which means they should live in the graph editor. So if they're not here, which means only the morph mixer activates them. So let's give that a check. Let me go to the position object properties, and then if I go down here and add morph mixer, and then you see automatically that more channels have been added to our object. So if we want to manipulate these items, it means we need morph mixer to be available on the object that we want to change. Now the thing is, we cannot rely on the user to make sure that morph mixer is there, which means we should add it ourselves. So we should let our plugin add morph mixer to make sure that it can search for the morphs that are contained in that object. So how do we add morph mixer? And that's what we're going to do now. So let me go back here and let's create a function here, because adding morph mixer will take several lines of code. So instead of doing that, let's just create a new function. So I'm going to call the function add morph mixer. Now this is not where you add the function from. I'm calling the function here, even though I haven't created it yet. So I'll put open and close bracket. Now the adding of a morph mixer is we're adding to a specific object. So since it's this object, I want to be able to access that object as well. So I'll put it in there as a variable. Okay. So now that we've done this, we need to create an actual function. Otherwise, calling this will return an error because this function doesn't exist. So let's create the function down here. So we're going to call it add morph mixer, of course, because that's what we've called it already. And then since it has a variable or an argument that has been passed, we have to put the, let me do this. Oh, sorry. Is that correct? Yes. Now, since we passed in an argument, which is this one, so we have to add that there as well to avoid an error. Okay. So we have this add morph mixer. So how do we add morph mixer? Now, if I come back here, these items here, or plugins, because all these are kind of like plugins, all plugins are called servers. Server like that. Okay. So what we want to access is the servers that are contained here. Now, what we're trying to do here is to check if morph mixer is already there, because we don't want to add morph mixer to something that already has morph mixer. So first of all, we have to check if the morph mixer is already here. To apply a server is very easy. The command is apply server, like this. And it requires two items. It requires the type of server, like this, and then comma, the name of the server, like that. So this is all you need to apply a server. Now the problem is doing this is doing something blindly, because we don't want to keep adding morph mixer every time an object is selected. We have to check first if it's already there, so we don't need to add it. So in order to check, we have to be able to access the servers that are already here. Now, an object has two types of servers. This is the motion options, and this is the object properties. Now, if you notice down here, you can add plugins to the properties, and you can also add plugins to the motion as a motion modifier down here. So we have to specify that we want to check here instead of there. Okay, so how do we do that? We have to know the type. There are two types. This one is called the motion modifier, of course. This one is called the displacement. So in order to do that, let's go down here. We're going to say, let's give it a, let's get the list of servers by saying and assigning it to my servers, something like that. My I don't know if that's how it is. R is here. It doesn't matter because that's just a name I've made up. My servers, something like that, is equal to object.server. Okay, so when we say object.server, we are asking it to get the servers that we want. Now the type, here we just have to tell it the type. So the type is a constant. It's not really a string, so we don't need to put inverted commas and stuff like that. So where is this? I'm going to say server. So this is a constant. Displacement and underscore h. So you might be asking, how did I know that this server is called this? It's because I read that in the Lightwave docs, which are right here. And this is the list of all the types of servers. So this particular one here, the displacement h, is the one I'm looking for. All right. So I don't need to put it in inverted commas actually, because it's a constant value like that. So what I'm doing here, I'm telling it to get all the plugins that are available in the displacement section of this object. So get all of them and put them in here. Now it's going to return an array, which is a list. Now, if I go back here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. So it means this list that will be returned here will have 6 items. So now for me to access the 6th item, I would need to do this. I'll need to say my server bracket 6 like that. So when I do that, it's going to show me the 6th item. Now the problem is I can't know how many items will be added at that time because each user is doing this differently. Okay, they might have 10 or 20 plugins connected there. So what I will do is use a loop to go through the entire number of servers without me knowing the total. So to do that, I'll use a for loop. I'll say for I is equal to 1. So I is just a variable I've added. You can use any variable here. It could be A, B, C, D. And then I'm going to say run while I is less than or equal to my servers dot size. So what I'm saying is I'm telling it to check the size of the item. So in this case, size will be 6 because there are 6 items here. So which means it's going to loop 6 times. And then after every loop, increment I, like so. Okay. So every time we loop, let it tell me what it's seeing. So let me do that and put I in there. So whatever the value of I at that time, that's what we'll be seeing. So let's put the info function there, something like so. So show us what's there. So now what's going to happen is that every time I select an item in layout, it's going to show me a list of plugins that are connected to it. So let me go here, put this aside so we can make a comparison. Now let me select bonds because I know bonds are not here, and let me add this to, let me add the morph mixer. Okay, so now if I select my item, so I get this one, morphing, that's the first one. I get bonds, I get subdivision, nodal displacement, so everything is right there. Now I have to know what morph mixer is called, so I have to go down here and add morph mixer for now, and then do this again. Go to bones, go back to objects, and then morphing, bones, And finally, there it is. So this is what Morph Mixer is called. LW Morph Mixer. Okay, so I need to remember that so that I can add an if statement here. Let me go back here and say, if that is equal to LW Morph, sorry, wrong spelling here, Mixer. So capitalization is important here. So if this is correct, it means we've found Morph Mixer there, so it means we shouldn't add it. So let me add a variable here called found, and let me set it to false. So this one will be the one that will tell us whether we found it or not. So I'll start by saying we haven't found it, it's false. And then if we do find it, let's set this one to true, like that. And then all we have to do, let me remove this, all we have to do down here is to check whether this is true or false. Because if we don't find it here, this will never be set to true, so it will remain as false. Okay? So down here, all I have to do is ask if found is equal to, actually I'm interested in it if it's false, because if it's false, it means the Morph Mixer wasn't found, so I need to add it. So if it's equal to false, then we can happily apply Morph Mixer. Like this. So the type, as I have said, is this one. So let's copy that type. And now we have the name, which is this one. Okay, so let's recap a little bit. We get the servers of the object, which are actually plugins, and we tell it to search in the displacement section and send all those to this one. And then loop through this collection, one item at a time, and then check if that item is Morph Mixer. If it is, then we've found Morph Mixer. Okay? If we found it, we change this one to true. And so here we check if it's true or false. If it's false, we apply the Morph Mixer. If it's true, we simply ignore this section. So I think this is going to work. It's going to add Morph Mixer once to every item. Okay, so let me go back here and let's test this to see if we're actually on the money. Let me remove that, remove this, and reload it again. So let me add another item here we can compare with. Let me add a no. And let me add Morph Mixer again. So now we can select this item, and you see Morph Mixer has been added. If I select the no object, and you see Morph Mixer has been added. Well, why does it have 23 morphs though? It's weird. Is this the no object? Yeah. That's weird though. 23 endomorphs. I think Lightwave is confused somehow here. Let me see which item they actually manipulate here. So it's simply confused. So if I go to this one and that one works. So that seems to be a bug with Lightwave. But anyway, we have seen that it works. If I remove this Morph Mixer, go back, add it again, and then you see it there. Same with this one. If I remove it, select the item again, let me go to bonds and then come back, you see Morph Mixer has been added. So the reason we're adding Morph Mixer is that now we have something in the graph editor to work with. Okay, so the next video we're going to look at how to actually add keyframes to these items right here, so we can manipulate the mouth, the nose, and so on, creating a Morph Mixer of our own. All right, I'll see you in the next video.